Hello everybody, we're starting our Cursed Hollow guide with this wonderful map. It's a sandbox custom game. If you're not aware of that, this is something that you can do in Heroes of the Storm. If you start a custom game, you have two maps that are available in sandbox custom game mode that gives you cheat codes that allows you to learn a little bit more about the map. And to start this Cursed Hollow guide, we're gonna use the sandbox mode. Just have a look at what we can do so that we have a little more freedom. We're going to set our level to level 20, and then the second thing that we're going to do is we're going to toggle the fog of war so that we can actually see the whole map. We're also using our talents so that the announcer doesn't annoy us with telling us that we should choose a talent. Okay, here we go. So, Cursed Hollow, if you haven't heard of the map, you should, because it's the first map that you will see when you play Heroes of the Storm. It is the beginner map, basically, that is played for about, I think, 10 games that you have at the beginning, that you only play Cursed Hollow. It's also pretty comfortable, a pretty comfortable pick in competitive Heroes of the Storm. That means HGC and below Open Division is something that you can see a lot, and you will definitely have... Sorry about that. Definitely have quite a bit of competitive lookouts in this. So, Cursed Hollow is the large map, probably one of the largest maps in the hero pool, in the map pool. Sorry, it is probably only challenged by Warhead Junction. Has a 3-lane map. It is basically giving you 2 solo lanes, as it's too big to rotate between the lanes. So. Middle to bottom rotation or middle to top rotations are not going to happen most of the cases. You will have somebody in the mid lane, and then most oftentimes you will have 1 or 2 people in the top lane and 1 or 2 people in the bottom lane. You will have one designated solo lane for sure. On the map you will have 3 different types of mercenary camps. We start with the siege camp, which is on the top left for the blue team and the bottom right on the red team. You will see on Cursed Hollow you'll have a lot of mirrored camps and positions. So these camps are mirrored, basically top for blue, bottom for red, and then we go on and have the night camp in the left middle and the night camp in the right middle for either blue and red team. So these are the camps that spawn at 1 minute. You can take them as soon as they spawn. And then we have the bosses that are in the top right and in the bottom left, that spawn about 5 minutes into the game. So these are basically able to be taken after the first couple of fights around the tributes. The tributes are the map objective. These are spawning 3 minutes into the game. Perfect timing. At 2:30 you will get the warning timer for the tributes, so you have 30 seconds before the tributes will spawn. These will show on the minimap earlier than that, so you will get a shout out, I think pretty much 15 seconds into the game, where the tribute will be spawning. So no more RNG. Before the gameplay update 2018 this was not the case. The tributes can spawn in several locations. They're again mirrored. So basically you have a top middle location, you have a top left location, and you have a top right location, which is here. So these 3 locations are where the tributes can spawn potentially. And then you have it mirrored again on the bottom. You have the middle one here, the right one close to the vision tower here, and then the left one closed up with these stone walls. So we call these defensive spawn for the blue team, as well as defensive spawn on the blue team for the on the top here, and then we have defensive spawn on the right for the red team. So basically, when it's close to your vision tower or enclosed by these stones, they're called defensive spawns because you have a better way to approach them. So you have 2 ways to approach them here as the red team, with the safety of a tower if your fort's already alive or still alive. And then you have obviously a shorter way back to your well, while the blue team in this position would have to walk all the way up here to get a well. So these are the positions. Generally speaking, the first 2 tributes will spawn at the same height. So if the first one is spawning top right here, let's collect this one. It will normally spawn again either on the left or on the right here on the top. And then the third tribute is on the opposite side of the map. That means it will spawn on one of these 3 positions on the top. On the bottom. If it spawns top first, the third will be possibly bottom most of the time. if not all the times. And then if they're on the bottom, you will normally find the third tribute on the top. So just keep that in mind with that. When you collect the tribute, 15 seconds after you collect it, it will show you where the next tribute will spawn. This should be a top tribute somewhere around left or right from me. This is important that you keep in mind that you know where the tributes spawn. Actually, this time it's on its bottom. So this is bottom. This is the defensive right spawn, so just keep that in mind. You can see it on the minimap very early on when you have a look at the tributes. So what do the tributes do? You have to collect 3 of them. You see the amount of tributes you already gathered on the bottom right. 1 of the 3 is now for the blue team and obviously 0 for the red team. This means that you have to collect 3 of them. What do 3 tributes do? Basically, once you curse your enemy, all minions of the enemy will be reduced to 1 HP. That only occurs to minions, so mercenaries are not affected by this. And then also keeps and forts and towers do not shoot anymore. So let's have a look how this will look in the game. So you can see I'm gathering the tribute here. Once I gathered the third one, all the minions are reduced to level to 1 HP. So they will die from one shot, as you can see here. And as you can see with my minions, here again, enemy minions only 1 HP, and my minions are not being attacked by the forts and the towers that are in lane. This also means that these minions, the enemy minions, die very quickly, so if nobody is in range, you will lose the XP of that. Just to keep in mind, the XP is not gathered by killing the minions. Somebody has to be in range of them to get the minion XP. Also, as you were able to see, you will disable the forts and keeps. That also means that the true vision they give against heroes that are stealthed is disabled. So basically, if you have Valera or Zeratul or somebody like that, they will not be unrevealed by the they will not be revealed by the towers of the fort and the keep anymore. With that, we understand now how the tribute works. You have to gather 3 of them. Once you have 3, you curse them. Let's talk about timings with these things. So the best timing is obviously if you have an advantage, you will get the tribute that gives you a curse. So for example, you're leading 10 versus 9, 13 versus 12, or 16 versus 15, somewhere like that. That's the best timing obviously for you, because you will have a strong map objective that pushes into your enemy, but you also have an advantage in talents already. So that's very easy map objective advantage. Generally speaking, the push of the curse will already give you a lot of advantages, so you don't necessarily need to be a level up or a talent up. Second timing that you should be knowing is siege camp timing. So this is a perfect tribute for me. It's in the bottom right, meaning that if I take the siege camp here, and we're going to do this real quick with Greymane, who's an excellent merc. So you will take this, and then you will send it on its way. So let's say you can do this at minute 2:15, 2:30, so basically 30 seconds before the tribute spawns. So now these guys are walking up the road here. These will always walk the top lane. On the other side, these will walk bottom lane, so you always have the same path if you take these mercenaries. So even if I as blue team took the red team siege camp, they will walk the bottom path. So why is it important to take these before a fight around the tribute? Basically, these will now push and either will take a fort, or the enemy team sends somebody to clean them up. This means that if I don't have a siege camp pushing against me and I'm a 5-man team, I can fight around the tribute 4 versus 5. The enemy team will have 1 person that is missing out of that. If they don't do that, if they don't send somebody, this will actually take at least the wall and possibly also the fort. If the fort is already down in the later stages of the game, this will also take keep wall and even keep. So these are really strong. So for us, as the blue team at the moment, you would want to basically delay the tribute, meaning either not take it right away or try to get a couple of kills so that they, as a red team, can't directly engage into our siege giants. You want to delay as much as possible so that these get a lot of value out of this. This is basically one of the first and easiest tricks that you can do. Again, the tribute spawns at 3 minutes, so at 2:30 you get the basically the warning for the tribute. So you normally want to do that around 2:30. Another option is to just take them at the minute 1, then it will give you a push very early on, and as you can see they're super strong. I haven't helped them at all and they take the 4 tier. If you take them by minute 1, they will respawn 3 minutes later, so that's minute 3. So that will be after the tribute, so it can be a little late for you. That being said, if the tribute would have been spawning top, as it was in the first tribute, and we take them in the first minute, it might actually be good, because then they will be ready for the second tribute, which might be spawning bottom. So taking these before a tribute fight is really good. If you can't secure them in time, it's also fine to delay them until you have a later tribute. The Night Camp has been changed for the gameplay update 2018, so that the minion here, the mage minion, gives spell shield. That means everybody who is in that, so we're gonna have a look. Spell shield, spell power, spell armor is 10 for me because I'm already grey main, and I have 10 armor in my Worgen form. But if we take this now and we kill the mage minion, so you can see that the mage, the knight minions don't have the spell shield anymore. Let's hope we don't die here. There you go. So now we take this camp and you can see the aura around them. So I have a spell armor of 30. That means that as I'm not in Worgen anymore, they give 30 spell armor. This means that these are really good at pushing, because they're obviously 4 further minions that take damage from the enemy minion, and they can soak some damage from the towers as well. But these are more valuable if you push with them, because you basically get protected from enemy spells by 30% less damage. And then they again soak a lot of shots from the enemy minions and the enemy towers. So you want to push with them. So normally the timing for these are that you take them after a tribute has been taken. So for example, if I have taken the top one as I did before, I would move over then and actually take these to push before the next tribute spawns. And as we were talking about siege minions, as you can see, these have pushed through now, and they actually went or are going to go core. So this is how powerful these are. You should never leave these alone ever. So that's really important. The bosses are win conditions. That means that if, in this case, the top fort and the top keep are down and you take this boss, it will march on towards the keep. Towards the core. That means, in this case, that because we cleared up the top lane already, this boss might actually win us the game if we push onto the core with it. That's really important. Otherwise, the bosses obviously have the power to just delay an enemy from capturing a tribute because they have to defend it. But also, most importantly, they are a threat if you don't have any other objectives. So, for example, you already won a fight against an enemy team. You will basically have the option to take this boss. The enemy has to take defensive against this boss, and then they will have. Then you will be able to get the second boss as well. So it's a double boss play, so to say. You take bottom boss. The enemy team has to defend it against it because otherwise they lose a lot of structures. So you move over and take their boss. That's one of those things that you can do with Cursed Hollow. Let's pause it right here. To get one more thing out of the way with bosses, you can also do a so-called cursed boss play that only happens in one specific scenario, where you can take the third tribute for free without being pressured. So for example, if you have level 10 versus level 8, so you have a very early snowball, and you just won a team fight convincingly by wiping the whole enemy team, and you have like 20 seconds before they respawn. If you then have a tribute that is spawning close to the boss, you can do the boss first and then collect the tribute. That would give you a curse and a boss pushing with that curse. So that's really, really important timing-wise. But you can only do this if you have a large advantage by taking the boss before you can take the third tribute. Obviously, there's a lot of things that can happen to you. The enemy can come back. They might sneak in the tribute while you're fighting the boss. They might contest the boss. So this is something that you have to be very careful about, but it's a very strong push. These are the 3 timings that you basically should be remembering. Take the siege camp before the tribute spawns, take the night camp after the tribute spawns, or take both camps if you're quick enough before tribute fights. They push in both lanes. That's also a possibility. The bosses are always objectives that should be taken after a tribute, unless you can, again, collect a third tribute for free. Then the boss can be taken before a tribute, and then it pushes with the curse. Okay, things to avoid doing on Cursed Hollow. While we see this still basically killing the core now nearly. Things to avoid on Cursed Hollow starts with what I said earlier, with getting an advantage out of your enemy. If you take too long for the first two tributes to contest them, you will be in the following situation. This is a quick match, so sorry for that, but I didn't have a good example of this for my Hero League games. And I haven't played Cursed Hollow a lot, actually. But if I was doing a War at Junction guide, there would be a lot of games. So, this is a quick match guide. You can see 3 kills on the blue team side, 11 on my red team side. 6 minutes into the game, and it's 8 versus 9. So the red team has collected 2 tributes, while the blue team hasn't collected any tributes. And now the next tribute will spawn, and the push comes to shove. It's also next to the boss. So this is an issue that will happen to you if you don't contest well enough for the first 2 tributes. Basically, the red team now has all 5 men up. They're level 10, they have a heroic talent advantage. They can do whatever they want in this situation. They should be easily able to get the tribute, because you can't fight into heroic talents very easily, especially if they just activated, so they're not on cooldown anymore. Second, you can see that the blue team is already split, because they want to get actually experience to get level 10, because they want to contest. This brings you in a position where you literally have no chance to take this fight around the tribute. If you make it worse, you will fight around the tribute and actually lose because of the disadvantage of the heroic talents. So then you not only give the enemy more XP from the kills, but you also give them a free curse. And if you wipe them, if you get wiped by them, you might actually run into that situation that we just talked about, where the timing is they take the boss and then take the curse. So it's really important at Cursed Hollow that you either try to contest the first 2 tributes, or if you see that you're going to run behind in XP, try to delay them as much as possible. That means don't let the enemy take the tributes, but also don't contest them too heavily. That could be done by either using range ability attacks so that they can't collect it, or you do basically something like soaking in all 3 lanes while the enemy is taking 2 of the tributes, but you make sure that you get an advantage out of it. For example, if you have savannas, you take additional buildings and really put pressure on the buildings so that you get more XP while the enemy team is getting the tribute. Generally speaking, if you're down 8 versus 10, the game can be over at this point. So if you don't contest the first 2 tributes, this can be really, really bad. Second thing that you should avoid so you don't lose the game is, again, letting the siege camp push forever. So if we look back into the game that we are in here now, the core is nearly dead. I actually didn't plan on this, but this time it worked very well. We had the siege giants go through all the keeps, through the fort and the keep, and now it's attacking the core. So if you let the siege giants push too much, you'll run into a situation where you might not be able to come back from something like this, because the enemy getting so much advantage that they have so much map pressure, which gives them so much vision as well, that you can't come back from that. Third thing, we're gonna probably have to restart and get a new game in here, so we're gonna do this really quick because we won the game. The third thing that you have to talk about on Cursed Hollow is basically face checking. Cursed Hollow has a lot of bushes that you want to stay away from, basically. And that's something that obviously is, important for every game or every map in Heroes of the Storm, but Cursed Hollow has some bushes that are really nasty around very specific areas. And we're going to have a look at that in a second. So, we loaded in to the game. So, the bushes on Cursed Hollow are very strategically placed. So basically around, and let's again toggle the Fog of War boss. So if you don't have vision here, you don't see into this bush. So even if you are relatively safe because you're close to your base, enemies can ambush you here. Also, if you want to take the siege camp here, and you don't have vision here, the enemy might be actually ambushing you right here if they're taking your fort already. So these bushes are also very dangerous. The same goes for the boss. while you can have a pretty okay vision if you walk into here, there's a bush waiting for an ambush here, and then obviously the biggest ambush here. So for Curse Solo, it's really important that you, in every situation, use your spells if possible to check for vision in these. As I said, on Curse Solo, a lot of things are mirrored, so you can see that the bushes are the same here for the boss, and then also for the vision, you have one in front of the vision, and then one in front of the siege camp. So I've seen so many games being won by just people waiting in these bushes for an ambush, and then winning a team fight off of killing one person early. Same goes for rotations. So if you're a mid laner and you see that your bottom is getting pressured, this is one of the main areas that you have to be careful about. So if you ride down here and you don't see all 5 members of the enemy team, it's always clever to just use a short cooldown spell into this bush to secure a safe rotation. Obviously these are also dangerous here, but realistically, this bush in the middle is probably the most dangerous one. Other things to avoid so you don't lose the game. Never ever take the boss right after you've cursed your enemy in the early game. So let's have a look again on the curse. When we take the curse, it basically gives us free minion and free XP minion, because they die from basically sneezing on them. If you take the curse and then right away go to the boss, nobody will soak in any of these lanes. So don't take the boss as 5. If you have a team that can do it like with 2 people or something, it can be okay. But generally speaking, for the first curse, you want to get as much value out of it as possible. That means take out the buildings, take out the minions that are so low, and get an XP advantage off of that. If you take the boss right away from the get-go after taking the curse, you don't get any value from it either, because it will take probably like 20 seconds or something, maybe even longer, for you to take the boss. And that can be actually pretty detrimental, because the curse only runs for 1 minute and 10 seconds. So if you spend like half of it fighting the boss, it doesn't only get you very little value in terms of XP, but then the boss basically runs into a fully restored wall because the curse ends. So never take the boss in the early game when you got a curse. For the late game, if you are looking at a winning condition, so basically you already took, for example, the top fort, here, and then maybe even parts of the keep wall, and then you get the curse here and this boss, it might be value to get the curse and then the boss, because you're basically playing for the end of the game. That means it's the last effort that you want to put in. Then it can be valuable. That being said, late game could even also be the same, that if you take the curse and you can safely take more than one keep, by just rotating out of the enemy's vision. Let's say they are defending here against a big minion push here, and you take bottom keep. And when they come back here to defend the minion wave that is going to their core, you take damage to the mid keep, or even take it. Then the curse has more value from that. The bosses are late game obviously stronger than their early game. So if it's like minute 16 or 20, you might get value out of it, but you have to be really careful to not take the boss with your curse and then just don't get any value out of your curse. And I've seen this happen a lot of times. Next thing that you should be avoiding if you don't want to lose the game on Curse Hollow is basically fighting for a tribute that doesn't give you any value. Let's have a look at this video. We're gonna see the red team has 5 people around the tribute, while the Sonya of the blue team is defending the siege camp. And as we've learned, the siege camp actually does a lot of damage if it doesn't get defended. So the blue team makes the mistake to contest this tribute out of position, and they lose actually 2 heroes here. This is a big problem, because you basically gave up the first tribute for free, and you gave the enemy experience through the heroes that died. While the red team had 5 heroes on the tribute and therefore didn't get soak from every other lane, it's still an issue, because you're basically giving them free kills that can snowball into the second tribute going to them for free, and then we have the same situation again where we're like maybe fighting 8 versus 10. This is also the case though for late game situations. If you don't have a tribute and the enemy doesn't have a tribute, the tribute is very much worthless. It's only one tribute, it doesn't give them any XP, it doesn't give them any advantage, nothing. So if you're in a late game situation where you're up a talent, it's good to force fights around the tribute. That's awesome. But that means if you're down a talent, just avoid the tribute, don't take it, and get enough XP to have the same talent tier that the enemy has. So just, again, avoid fighting around the tribute or for a tribute if it doesn't have any value for you, or just try to delay it as much as possible and then run away as much as you can. Okay, let's go back to our game. As I said, Curse Hollow is a large map. That means that you will need a good composition of heroes for this map. Talking about compositions and which heroes to pick, Curse Hollow is probably one of the most balanced maps and will give you the chance to play a lot of heroes that you normally don't play, or heroes that shine where you maybe didn't even expect it. As the map is so large and walking from top to bottom is like super long, obviously global heroes are very, very important. So heroes like Dehaka, Brightwing, Falstad, Abathur, heroes that can soak several lanes at the same time, like Abathur, or that can, switch positions from top to bottom very quickly, like Brightwing, Falstad, and Dehaka, can be a huge success on this map. Basically, imagine you took the siege camp on the bottom as a red team, and now the tribute is top. Somebody is contesting the siege camp in the bottom because they want to not die from the siege camp, but you're Dehaka, so you just burrow up into this bush here, and suddenly you have a 4 versus 5 fight for your red team, and you might be able to secure the tribute much more easily. Same goes for Falstad. You can fly through different situations where it's like, hey, we're fighting down here for the boss or something, and we actually get the enemy team and we wipe them, so we're going to take the boss here, but Falstad is able to fly up and secure the tribute. So heroes that are very agile, that can go up and down on the map, are really important and really strong on this. Obviously, this also goes for heroes that are not global from the beginning, but basically get talents that can give them global. So that's ETC, for example, with Stage Dive, Zagara with Nidus, and then the Hunt with Illidan. Illidan obviously excellent at murking already, so taking Mercenary Camps is one of his strengths. And then he can also be a global. Awesome, can be a great hero for this map. A little bit left out is Medic. I think the Medivac can be useful. That being said, she on her own can't really do much. Like, she doesn't clear waves very well. So if she's bottom lane, for example, and then you send her top lane to clear mercs or something, or clear minions, doesn't do anything much because she doesn't have the clearing power. So while she technically has a global potential, she's not really a good hero for that. What else is strong on this map in terms of compositions? It's one of the only maps in competitive, but also for Hero League, in which the Lost Vikings are actually valuable. So if you have Lost Vikings and you can do basically 3-lane soak by having Vikings in the top lane and then in the bottom lane, in the mid lane, and then a very strong 4-man push in the bot lane, this can put a lot of pressure on the enemy team. 4-man pushes are obviously strong if you draft the right heroes around it. I have a Lost Vikings guide on YouTube as well for that, so if you want to learn more about Lost Vikings and how to play with them, check that out. Another hero that can influence the game and is not seen as super competitive at the moment is Tyrael, for example. We've talked about the bosses, right? The bosses are very important. They can be win conditions for both sides. So which heroes have great control over them? Basically, a bunch of them. Tyrael was one of the examples. He has Holy Ground from level 16 on. So if you're contesting a boss with Tyrael, you might be able to shove all of the other enemy heroes off of the boss point. So this can give you an advantage because the enemy might actually finish the boss for you, and then you can seal it away. Similar thing goes obviously for Falstad with Mighty Gust, Emerald Wind on Brightwing. You have Wave of Force of Li Ming. Lots of heroes have abilities to push off the enemy off these boss points. So if you draft one of those, it can be very useful, and you should always just remember that on your drafting as well. Like, if you don't have a good hero that can necessarily take mercenaries or the boss, maybe draft a hero that can take away mercenaries and the boss. And a Brightwing with Emerald Wind, for example, is a great way to control that. Last but not least, we're talking a lot about the tributes and delaying the tributes and making sure that the enemy doesn't get them, or that your team has more time to get value out of the mercenaries. So any hero that has good aerial deny, or can range poke without any problem, like Chromie, for example, Junkrat. These heroes are excelling on this map because you basically can easily just destroy any attempt of right-clicking on the tribute and interrupting the channel. So if you have that, that's really great for your draft as well. So overall, you should normally look at having at least somebody who can either global soak or has good wave clear, or can clear mercenaries very well. You should have a look at boss control and how that works, and how easily you can either defend a boss or you know, prevent the enemy team from taking a boss. And then a lot of poke damage on Cursed Hollow will help you interrupt the tributes and everything else that is, you know, considered important on this. And the poke damage not necessarily only for the tributes, but for example, if the enemy wants to take the siege camp, but we're invading them and they can't really go onto the point because we're poking this point away, or we D.Va self-destruct this point, it can be very powerful because it denies them something that they wanted to use as map pressure. Okay, for now you should know about the map objective, you should know how it works. You should know a little bit about timings, when to send things, when to send the night camp, when to send the siege camp. Learn about the boss and the mechanics around it, taking the third tribute after you take the boss, not before, and stuff like that. We will now jump into a replay about Cursed Hollow that I played recently in Hero League. For the future, I would love to use more HGC replays, but as the HGC is not ongoing at the moment, we're gonna wait until that happens, and then we're gonna move on to that. So we're gonna jump into this replay, and I'll see you with that in a second. So for this team, for the red team, we will have a global hero on this Cursed Hollow map, so that's really good for them. They have False Start, they also have good wave clear with Gul'dan and Nazeebo, also two heroes that can clear mercs very well. So we're gonna see how the two teams will play this. This is very common that you meet in the middle and then just fight it out about the minions and you know, lose a hero or not. This is very common. It's not very useful, to be honest. It doesn't really give you that much advantage. You can see the hero kills actually give very little XP. But we see the red team flies up with False Start because they have the global. That's very good for them. They can basically soak a lane much quicker than we can on the blue team side. But the blue team, on the other hand, has also rotated, and they went to a lane which nobody was in yet, so they get minions here. So this is a pretty common setup on Cursed Hollow, where you have like 3 to 2 people in the middle. You have 1 solo laner on top, and then you have 2 to 1 person on the bottom as well. As you can see, the mercenaries are spawned on both sides, so now is the time where we will see when mercenaries will happen. The Greymane gets a kill up top, which is really important against the global hero. So now the red team can't soak top much easily, but they're rotating already with Mercenary. The Greymane on the blue team is pinging the siege camp, which is a great timing. 1.5 minutes into the game, so we're gonna have another 1.5 minutes before the tribute here on the bottom spawns. The bottom tribute also means that this top siege camp will have great value if the red team doesn't defend it. Blue team is splitting up a little bit so that they still soak on all lanes, so all lanes are covered. That's one of the most important things in the early game of Cursed Hollow. As you can see, the blue team has gained a little bit of an XP advantage out of the kills that they got, but also because sometimes the kills led to situations where the heroes couldn't soak the lane anymore because nobody was there. So now we have a siege camp pushing here up top and the tribute spawning bottom. So this is the perfect situation for the blue team. The red team answers with taking their own siege giants. Again, as I said, it's not necessarily the best to take it when the tribute spawns on the lane where the siege giants are walking in, because it's easy to clear them. But it's still something that gives pressure to the red team, so they might be able to take a little bit more time to take this tribute because the blue team has to clear the wave. The blue team decides to also send the night camp, which is in part possible because Greymane is a great mercenary hero, as I said. Early game really strong, so their lineup with Greymane taking the mercenaries is helping them a lot. As you can see now, the teams are pretty split. The red team is defending the tribute, But also they have to defend the mid, and we're going to pause it real quick here. They have to defend the mid because it's otherwise pushing into the wall, which is pretty bad. And we still have the siege giants pushing in here because ETC is actually defending them. So that's something that you can also do if you are confident in your team communication, that people know that ETC is up here, he's defending, Falstad might fly down any second, so the blue team has to be careful. And the tribute should be more of a priority for the red team than the blue team, because the blue team can't easily come together here. Ragnaros is taking care of the pressure from the red team, so they're losing the siege giants as well. And as you can see now, it's a 4 versus 4 fight, while Falstad and ETC are battling out in the top. And both teams do a decent job of just poking each other and keeping away from the tribute. The blue team has the issue that their tank is not here, so they can't really engage into the tribute because they take a lot of damage. On the other hand, damage is missing for the red team because Falstad is not here. Let's pause it again. You can see that both ETC and Falstad have now rotated down. The siege giants were cleared, but they took a tower. So you can see already that there's still a lot of power in these mercenaries. Now both of them fight around the mid because the camp is still alive, and the Gul'dan made the mistake to not clear the mage minion first. While the knights take the most of the damage, the mage minion gives you the aura, so ETC can pretty easily contest here with Falstad to fight around this. Jump back a little bit so we can see who was killed here and what's happening bottom. As you can see, Ragnaros now pretty low. Again, the blue team is missing their tank, so it's very difficult for them to fight into this. Now they also lose the Greyman. And while ETC is coming here now for the blue team, and they get a kill as well, it looks rather grim. That being said, they still have good poke with Hanzo, so they can still do something here. Also, the red team Falstad teleported back, so there's still no man-to-man advantage. Now they are here, 4 people for both of the teams, and Lucio now makes the mistake to go in without having the ability to actually do anything here. The poke should have come from Hanzo, so you should never go in and poke or try to disrupt a tribute if you die for it. You can see the XP is still very much balanced, so that's a good thing for both teams, because even if the first tribute is taken by either of the sides and the second tribute spawns soon, it will probably not be the case that any of those two teams will be level 10 before the other, unless we see a lot of kills here right now. Pretty split up fight again. The healer of blue team was missing, while the red team is not forcing enough of the fight, and actually lose a couple of heroes here as well. So a very long fight around the tribute, and you can see that on the other lanes nobody is soaking. So that's something that you should try to avoid. You should either give up the tribute, or if you can't or don't want to because it's an important one, try to still make the fights as quick as possible. Red team gave up on the tribute, very well done. No further losses on their side, and now they're already soaking the XP here in the mid. Really, really well done. Let's pause it again. We're already 5 minutes and 30 seconds into this game now, so the siege camps have respawned. So this is really important because now the next tribute spawns bottom again. So the blue team should again send the siege giants because they will get a lot of value, while these can still have value because they're this time a little further away from the lane than they were before, with the tribute being in the middle part of the map. With all this going on, you can see the blue team has gotten a little bit of an advantage, 9 versus 8. So the red team normally should try to contest this to make sure that the enemy team doesn't get it for free. That being said, because they're so close in XP, it's very unlikely that with this tribute being taken now, that the red team will be a heroic talent down for the next tribute. So you should normally try to contest, as I said, the early tributes, just so that the enemy team doesn't have the advantage on level 10. But as both teams are very close to level 10, this is a situation that you can do. And as they're soaking all 3 lanes pretty consistently, the red team will be able to get level 10 in time. So, no siege giants were picked, no mercenaries were done. But the blue team is level 10 now, and their grey main is going back and now takes the siege giants. That being said, the tribute is now top, but in the defensive position, so again, it's a longer way to the wave, so taking these is actually pretty smart. And the timing is also pretty perfect. 30 seconds before the tribute starts, so until the siege giants are walked into the lane, the tribute will be active. Unfortunately for the red team, they were skirmishing down here and lost a hero. So now they're not only spread around the map, with Falzat trying to defend the siege giants, Nazeebo trying to be helpful around the tribute, but they're also man down, and they will be cursed if they don't take this tribute. So now they're in a pretty much dire situation, because they have to defend this, but they're already losing HP all over the place, and they still have a siege giant here to defend. Blue team isn't playing this very effectively either. They should be focusing on the tribute, as they will get a huge advantage from taking the tribute. That being said, they get a kill here, so this will allow them to basically secure the tribute without any further losses. And the way that the red team is playing it is actually very delicate. So, as I said before, the curse obviously is really bad for you. You shouldn't be cursed, obviously, because it will give you a huge disadvantage. That being said, if you just feed your enemies XP and XP and XP by having, single heroes die, you will not only be cursed, but you also gave the enemy a lot of XP. So at some point, it is important to just accept that you will not be able to contest this third tribute, and you will be cursed. The better solution in this phase of the game is then that you can go to the lanes early and push them out, because your minions will die anyway. But if your minions die to the towers, they actually will not give the enemy team any XP. So for example, if you clear this huge blue wave as the red team, and then the red wave just walks in the towers, you deny a lot of experience from the blue team. Unfortunately for the red team, they decide to still fight around this tribute, all being pretty low. Falzat also low, Gul'dan having little mana, and then when they get a counter kill, they get another kill and lose 3 members, and now get cursed. This is okay. I'm trying to delay Azumafirium, but now he sees there's too many enemies, he can't do anything. This you should also never do. The ETC also interrupted his teleport back. You should never Hearthstone back if you get the curse. And you should also never take the enemy mercenaries once you get the curse. First of all, they're in a very dangerous position. As I said, the bushes here are very dangerous, but also they don't give you any value. It's similar to the boss. They don't do anything while you're taking them. You just lose time on the curse. The blue team decides to know better. They split up. 2 people go top and get not only minion but also building XP here. Hanzo is going mid. It's really good. He will be able to take all these minions here that die. And then we even have somebody bot. So all 3 lanes are being soaked by the blue team. As a red team, you also have a pretty okay defense. 2 people are contesting 2 people up here. You have Arthas taking care of mid, and you have somebody in the bottom lane. So you don't lose all of the XP from the blue minions dying, which is good. And you also don't give the enemy team free reign over everything. The blue team actually doesn't get a lot of value out of this. They got top fort now, but there are 3 people up here and now don't know really what they want to do. Do they want to take boss? Do they want to do something else? Now somebody is getting out of position here. So not the best way to use the curse here for the blue team. Rayman tried to get value out of this, didn't get any of the 4 damage done here as well. And now unfortunately the red team got overzealous and went into the blue team to fight. Not only are they talent down, which makes it difficult, but also their defensive structures are not helping them. So what they should have done is basically weather the storm, stay behind their forts, give up the forts if necessary, and then just defend behind here or even at the keep wall. This way they lost a couple of heroes, which gives the blue team even more XP. The blue team is now up 3 levels. They invaded the enemy team, and as you can see, the siege giants are going in the bottom lane. As I said, whenever you take them, they always go bottom lane. The red team clears them up very quickly, but again they fight into talent down, which is not very good. You shouldn't do that. ever, and especially now that you lost so many defensive structures on the bottom and the top, you're also a little bit out of position because you can only retreat to the middle. You can also see that there's huge waves pushing in, like this wave should be cleared, and there's another wave coming up here that should be cleared. So instead of fighting after it occurs, normally what you will see is that a lot of minions are drawn into you and into your base because your minions have been dying and your buildings have been dying without damaging the enemy heroes. So you will have huge waves of enemy minions coming in that should take priority over fighting against the enemy heroes, because you can get much XP from them. Another issue for the red team is that now that there's 2 forts down, the blue team has much more vision on them. They can see whoever is clearing here, they can see whoever is clearing here, and they even have, due to the wall being removed here, vision on the middle a little bit. This makes this boss call relatively safe. It's also pretty okay because there's no other objective on the map. They could take the smaller minions or the smaller mercenaries with the knights or the siege camp, but they can also do a double boss play now. As I explained earlier, double boss play basically means that you take one boss, and while the enemy team has to defend, they will take another boss. This works here very well because they can see Falstad, they can see Arthas, and they can see Nazeebo and Malfurion. So taking this is very, very safe. And it's also presumed that while the blue team is taking the boss, it's very unlikely that the red team is taking their boss, because they're not fast enough to move over. So the correct call would be to go over and take the enemy boss now. The blue team can't communicate that properly apparently, and therefore can't or will not do it, which is a mistake. You can see also somebody wants to push here in the bottom. It's not very clear what they want to do. So that's something that you hopefully learn with this video as well, that if you have these objectives, you should try to maximize your profit from it. This is the next something that you should take away with. So if you look at the map now, you can see 1, 2, 3, 4 heroes here defending the boss. The blue team doesn't know where the Falstad is, but it's very likely that after he cleared the top, he just moved back. By the way, this is really good. Cleared the waves all the way. The fort will take damage, so it's actually likely that they will get XP from this. So now the blue team is still confused on what they want to do. They're up a talent, they should be fighting or trying to force a fight. But instead, the tribute is spawning. There's a wave pushing in here, they have to clear this, and the enemy boss is still there. So what they do in the end is pretty smart. They see all the enemy heroes, they see that they still need to defend this. There's no way that they can contest the tribute with Hanzo being at the siege camp, 2 people pushing here, and ETC being on the enemy boss. So what the blue team does is they decide to just skip this tribute, because it doesn't do anything, and take the boss. Taking the boss is still risky because of Falstad's Mighty Gust and the speed of how quickly they're doing the boss, but the blue team doesn't react well enough, and they're still talent here down. So the risk to reward balance is probably leaning towards the blue team. The red team got the tribute now, but there's very little value to that. They just got it because nobody was contesting them, which is a good move, but for the blue team, there was no real reason to take the tribute. So you can see here that sometimes it's really good in the late game stages of Cursed Hollow to just leave the tribute, just let it be. Nobody gets an advantage over it, take something that has more impact. For the blue team, this should be the boss, but the red team has incredibly great wave clear and clear against the boss. Falstad, Nazeebo and Gul'dan all do a lot of damage to the boss, and as you can see, it's been cleared very quickly. The Siege Giants were timed a little bit too late to also impact this fight here, so while they're still here fighting, they don't do really much. They will be easily cleared as well. So now another tribute is spawning soon, and still the issue that the red team has is that they are pretty much seen everywhere on the map. Top and bottom pushes in, mid-wave is cleared, so the blue team will easily get it because they will see all the formations of the red team going over to the tribute. Tribute is spawning, no contest, which is really good also. The blue team was up a talent tier still. The red team just got level 16, so not contesting this tribute, even if they were either way too far away for that. But not contesting the tribute here was very good, because they caught up on XP, and now they can fight over the next one. And the blue team doesn't have a third one coming up. They're only on one as well. So therefore, giving up this tribute again is definitely an option. You don't have to fight over every tribute in the mid to late game of Cursed Hollow. Again, early game, you want to avoid giving up too many tributes if the enemy is also getting a lot of XP advantage over you, because you don't want to fight 8 or 9 versus 10. But late game or mid game, especially when your talent tier is below the enemy, it's much easier to just soak a little bit of XP. Again, this is a tribute that doesn't really matter to anybody. It's a second tribute for both teams. So the blue team decides that for them, it's much easier to use a fight now, still 2 levels ahead, and giving this up doesn't really concern them. So what they do, with a great call from the ETC, they hide in one of these ambush bushes. So now, unfortunately for Falstad, there's no forty anymore, there's no safety, and now he's gonna go and face check this bush. And he's dead. And this is again one of the things that you should avoid always on Cursed Hollow, is running into bushes. Mafurin also uses his heroic, which is a little unfortunate, but during the other time, Nazeebo can sneak the tribute. So for them, for the red team, they lose a couple of people, but at least they have a second tribute now, which encourages them to get a curse soon and hopefully catch up in XP once they get the curse. Now there's an issue for the red team though. They might be losing another couple of heroes here, but also the blue team is now walking towards 20. Which would be a huge issue for the red team, because they're 3 levels behind then in this case. Which means that even if they take a curse, the red team might, the blue team might be able to easily defend against the curse, and even be, in an advantage, because they can just like fight wherever the red team is attacking the cursed buildings. Which is something that we talked about earlier today as well. Not every tribute is important. So now, as you can see, this fight here is actually excellent for the red team. The blue team is not level 20 yet. They can fight on the same talent tier, and an important objective is spawning for the red team, but it's unimportant for the blue team. So fighting here is actually the best thing that can happen for the red team. Unfortunately for them, the blue team has pretty elusive heroes with Lucio's speed boost and ETC power sliding away, so the blue team can actually avoid fighting here. So now there's an issue. There's level 20 for the blue team. There's 3 levels until level 20 for the red team. The red team now will take this tribute. This will curse the blue team. The issue is that this curse will not do anything for the blue team. Against the blue team. So they take this tribute here. Unfortunately for them, Gul'dan is out of position. They also have not number 5 on board, because they just respawned, I think. So that means that, awesome, you have the curse now, but as you will see, they will lose all of their teammates here, or at least a large chunk of them. Fighting against 20 is very, very difficult. Most often than not, you will lose that fight. So what would be the correct choice here? Instead of taking this curse, the Falstad should have just left it. Which obviously is difficult, and it's very easy to say in hindsight, oh, you should have just done this. But it's a very difficult decision when you're in the game. But this tribute and the curse with it actually doesn't give you anything. If you gave it to the blue team, they would have 2 tributes, sure. So the next one is a curse for them, which also is deadly. But you have at least 3 more minutes to soak experience. 3 levels in 3 minutes, or 2.5 levels in 3 minutes, is still a huge challenge. But this way now, you used your curse and you lost a couple of people because you were trying to get the curse. That's something that, again, goes back to the things that you should be avoiding to not lose on Cursed Hollow. Don't try to get every tribute on the map. If it's not important, it's not important. If it's the first tribute, if it's the second tribute, really doesn't matter. You will not, die from the enemy having 1 tribute and you having none. Which is where we come to the end of this game. The red team unfortunately can't come back from this. They still have somebody down, and even though the blue team is cursed, they're winning the team fight here and just are able to take out the core by just focusing on killing everybody again with the heroic tier advantage, and then also with Ragnaros, who can Molten Core now and just finish the game. So, to summarize everything up in this game, basically the mistake there was that the late game curse wasn't important enough for the trade that they made. Again, obviously there's, you know, single player making mistakes where it's like the Gul'dan should not have, you know, been out of position and everything, but generally speaking, if you just ping away from the tribute, the blue team gets the tribute, nothing happens, and you have at least 3 more minutes to soak experience. So give up on tributes that you don't need necessarily, even if they're a curse tribute for your team. If you can't use the curse is useless for you. I hope that was helpful for everybody watching the video until the end. This is the end of this guide. Again, in the future we're probably going to go and look at HGC maps and how the pros play the games. But for now we have to do with My Hero League games. Thanks everybody for watching, and I see you for the next guide very soon. Have a good one. Bye bye.